Geometry of the External World, and it was written by EA Luetkemeyer.
The bright and excitable Lord Lucian, heir apparent to the kingdom of Sandu, suspected treachery in the court.
Yes, there was something rotten in Sandu, all right. But I will tell you up front, I am nobody's fool. That my conniving, low-life collaborators believed for a minute their duplicity might escape my intelligence only proved their lack of it. The insidious sideways glances, the furtive whisperings in the hall, the sudden silence at my approach, all pointed to a perfidious plot.
The young lord resolved to conceal his suspicions, but the strain of his efforts betrayed him.
I was at one moment buttoned up as tight as a maiden's corset, the next as chatty as a drunken monkey. Oh, get a grip, Lucian, I admonished myself. Oh. Don't let these sycophantic flunkies know that you know what's happening. Be one and the same person at all times.
His uncle, Sir Tomas, court physician and mathematician of the kingdom of Sandu, was consulted.
I diagnosed bifurcation of the soul and prescribed an excursion into the wilds of unclaimed territories, the outermost region of the known world, to engage the boy's senses and align the cosmos of his inner space with the imperturbable geometry of the external world.
Ha! A most suspicious remedy. A holiday in the hinterlands where all manner of foul play might befall me? I would have to be on my guard.
Lucian's other uncle, Sir Borodine, an explorer of distinction and often commissioned by the court to map the unclaimed territories, agreed that Lucian might accompany him on his expedition.
It would do the boy good to explore the flora and fauna of an alien realm, where boulders rumble like far-off thunder, water runs uphill, and thoughts determine the shapes of the clouds. And he just might benefit from the company of his quite famous uncle.
The Queen Mother, too, put her royal stamp of approval on the plan.
Oh, Borodine, take my son, please. Take him to the far corners of the known world and bring him back healed and whole and fit to take the reins of the kingdom of Xanadu.
Truly, the fanciful landscape of the unclaimed territories was engaging, and Lucian might have become aligned, as it were, but for the slyness of Uncle Borodine. The passage he plotted seemed so meandering, such a patchwork quilt of latitude and longitude, that Lucian wondered if they were not lost, a possibility he posed to him one blustery day as he stood upon the peak of a craggy range.
Pardon me, Uncle. I know you're quite famous. You've been to where no man has gone before. But it seems to me that, could it be that we could be lost?
Oh, a question I am pleased to answer, Lucian, if only to prove it preposterous.
Borodine unscrolled the map he had composed en route. He looked at his compass, he scanned the horizon, he pointed with his finger.
Look there, Lucian. Do you see that range opposite us across the intervening valley?
I do.
And do you see the uppermost peak on the left, whose shape is that of a dunce cap?
I do.
And the peak beside it, whose shape is that of a sleeping camel?
I do.
Well, my young nephew, there is precisely where you will find us.
Ha ha! What, dear uncle, do you suppose we are doing on yonder peak?
I suppose, dear nephew, that we are gazing this way, wondering what we are doing on this peak. Therefore, I propose that we descend and cross the valley on the assumption that they will do the same, and we will encounter them, that is to say, us, in the middle.
The next day, following a fitful night's sleep, in which Lucian dreamt if he crossed his legs and puckered his sphincter just so, he might levitate and float blissfully above the pitchforks of the howling masses, he and Borodine approached the valley's midpoint. Lo, approaching in the near distance were two astoundingly familiar figures, Lucian and Borodine. The two Borodines greeted one another as familiar colleagues.
Borodine!
Borodine!
Lucian, meet Lucian.
The two Lucians extended their hands, but withdrew them and settled for a pair of wary nods.
My dear Lucian,
We suggest that you take a stroll and become acquainted with yourselves. Sir Borodine and I have matters to discuss. A brief respite, and then we'll be on our way.
Lucian and his counterparts strolled to a log beside a gully and sat like bookends. They gazed over the expanse of valley that receded to the distant mountains, and they glanced at their respective selves, then looked away.
Had the universe sent me an ally? A confidant I could trust indubitably in all matters of heart and mind? Or had this alter ego been sent by the universe to betray me? I would question the lad, but I feared I might lose sense of which Lucian I was. The one who queried, or the one who replied. I decided to regard myself as Lucian the one, and my counterpart as Lucian the other. Are you my friend, or are you my foe?
Pardon me?
I said, are you my friend, or are you my foe?
Must I be one or the other?
Well, yes. I mean, you must be the other if I am the one. But are you my friend, or are you my foe?
I am who I am.
Which tells me nothing, frankly. Do you have a scar?
I do.
Let me see.
Lucian the other pulled up his trouser leg, pulled down his stocking, and pointed. Lucian the other, the one, pulled up his own trouser leg, pushed down his stocking, and placed his leg aside that of Lucian the other, revealing a matched pair of jagged scars.
How did you get it?
I was bitten when a young boy by a rabid honey badger.
And did you then spend a fortnight bound to your bed and foaming at the mouth?
So I'm told.
Well, as did I. Tell me, have you been circumcised?
Well, yeah, I have.
Oh, I won't ask to see. I'm satisfied that in all matters of flesh, you and I are synonymous. But are we kindred spirits in matters of the mind and heart? Tell me, is your mother the queen?
She is.
And you are heir apparent to the kingdom of Sandu?
I am.
And Sir Borodine and Sir Tomaz are your uncles?
They are.
And your uncle Tomaz, mathematician and court physician to the kingdom of Sandu, has determined that you suffer from chronic bifurcation of the soul.
He has.
Yes. And now you accompany your uncle on this expedition to align the cosmos of your inner space with the imperturbable geometry of the external world.
That is the prescription, yes.
And do you suspect, as I do, that some nefarious conspiracy is in the making involving the whole of the court, the subject of which is yourself?
I have considered that possibility.
But you've not concluded it.
I have not. I am inclined to believe that the intentions of the court are benevolent, and I should be grateful for the royal intervention.
Oh, is that so?
Quite so. I long to be aligned, to be in harmony with the universe, at one with my fellow man, free of confusion and doubt, forever. Wouldn't that be lovely?
At this suggestion of loveliness, Lucian, the one, fell into a dream. He saw himself floating like a fluffy white cloud in a powder blue sky, buoyant and blissful. Formless, morphing into a cherub in a dreamless sleep, a billowing bed of feathers, all watched over by a court of loving lords and ladies. But in an instant, the bed of feathers became a bed of prickly pears, and the court of loving lords and ladies a chorus of clamoring clowns. He awoke from his dream with a start.
Oh, the bastards! How clever of them to send this sycophant, this fool, this fraudulent facsimile of myself to rhapsodize about harmony with the universe and unity with my fellow man. Oh, clever and contemptible. But I, Lucian, the one and only, wasn't born yesterday.
Well, Lucian, let's be off. We hope your time together was pleasant and productive. Nothing like communing with oneself, we always say.
The Borodines loomed above Lucian like rooks on a chessboard. He chose to accompany the one nearest by, whose smile seemed familiar, but when he looked behind him, he saw that the mountain range they traveled away from was identical to the one they traveled toward. What awaited him at his destination then? A court contriving to end his life, or one intent upon healing his bifurcated soul and returning him to the bosom of their undying love?
Uncle, tell me, how can I know that you are the Borodine who I previously accompanied, and not the Borodine who traveled the opposite direction?
Whatever do you mean, Lucian?
Well, I mean only that, as you are an exact replica of the Borodine we encountered in the center of the valley, and I am an exact replica of myself, that is, the Lucian who accompanied the Borodine of whom you are an exact replica, might it not be that I now accompany the wrong, so to speak, Borodine, and that you accompanied the wrong Lucian, and that likewise our other identical selves are similarly mismatched, and further, that the court to which we are now bound is not the court to which we previously perambulated, but is the very court from which we parted.
Frankly, Lucian, I haven't a clue what you're talking about. I'm afraid, dear nephew, I have no choice but to inform Sir Thomas that his remedy failed to achieve the result for which it was intended, and for which the court so earnestly hoped.
The meaning of Borodine's pronouncement rang clear as steeple bells. I would now be prescribed an herbal concoction from the panoply of palliatives for which my nefarious Uncle Thomas was duly famous, and from which I would not awaken. Excuse me, Uncle. I must relieve myself. I slipped into the bushes, and I followed the course of a bone-dry riverbed mile after mile. I wandered the wilderness of the unclaimed territories with only myself for company. My hair grew long, my robe tattered. I would not have been recognized by the Queen Mother herself. I fashioned a stout cudgel of hardwood with which to smite my enemies, and should I perchance encounter that two-faced knave Lucian, I would bludgeon him as well, to within an inch of his, well, that is to say, our duplicitous life.